episode 225, the Expert Series with Erin Carson. Welcome to the Pursuit of the Perfect Race. I'm Coach Terry Wilson, and with each episode, I bring stories of athletes to you that share their experiences at races in order for you to learn how to have your perfect race. You will hear stories from athletes of all ages, abilities, and races of all distances. So regardless of where you fit in, there's something in there for you. Thanks for spending some time with me today. Now let the pursuit begin. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Pursuit of the Perfect Race. Today I'm continuing and wrapping up the Expert Series with my talk with Erin Carson, who is a strength training expert out of Boulder, Colorado. She has been doing strength training for over 30 years, She's been doing strength training for over 30 years and is a NASM certified personal trainer and has a degree in exercise physiology. Erin has worked with top professionals in the sport such as Paula Findlay, Tim O'Donnell, Miranda Carfrae, and Jenni Seymour. Welcome to the show. I look forward to discussing your strength training knowledge and sharing your knowledge with everybody.
Great. It's great to be here. Thanks, Terry.
You're welcome. So before we really get started, who are you, what do you do, and where are you located? I know you're out of Boulder. Who are you?
My name is Erin Carson. I graduated with a degree in kinesiology from the University of Colorado, where I also played Division I college basketball. For most of my young athlete career, I was a member of the Canadian Olympic basketball program as well. So I kind of started playing basketball and then went into coaching basketball. So coaching has always been a passion for me, being a leader, helping people get better, understanding strategy, super important part of the story. I own a club here in Boulder, Colorado. I'll call it a club rather than a gym because we've got swimming pools and it's childcare and a lot of the top training modalities that you might need or want just to make yourself as good as you can possibly be. And we try and create that kind of training environment where people can come and feel like they're really being well taken care of and not overtraining too much is probably the key takeaway that we're preaching in this time and day of high intensity interval training and that kind of stuff in the fitness industry. We're really trying to help people stay well, continue to get stronger instead of weaker. Don't do things that just make you tired. So my passion is to really help people. I love the title of your podcast, The Pursuit of the Perfect Race. You know, I'm kind of on that same genre and that same path. To help people feel good in their pursuit of whatever it is they want to do.
Wow. So you've been doing this for 30 years. How did you get started in the strength training? And I know you're a personal trainer. You have certifications galore. How did you get into all this and your continued education? What does all this look like?
You know, when I was an assistant basketball coach, I had two gigs that I did in the early 90s. And one was at Tulane University. And one was at the University of Nebraska. And when you are low man of the totem pole in a Division I university as an assistant basketball coach, you typically are in charge of the conditioning aspect, especially if it's in a women's sport. So Tulane, I had some great experience working with the girls in the weight room and around the track. But where I really got keen on it was at the University of Nebraska. And you know, they were the perennial power in football. They had set the stage for what an exquisite weight room looked like. And Boyd Epley, who I believe is now the athletic director at the University of Nebraska, or at least he's got some high ranking position at the University of Nebraska, but his original job was head strength and conditioning coach, and he's also the founder of the National Strength and Conditioning Association. So that is my primary credential, is as a certified strength and conditioning specialist through the NSCA. And that's where I really started realizing that if really keen attention was paid to the development of the athlete, then the coaches who could take over and really develop the skill and the specificity towards performance and winning, that I was forming the kind of scaffolding to provide the platform for the skill or the desired outcome. And so I started recognizing that role of strength coach was pretty important. So I ultimately, and it's a long story, not one that we're going to get into now, but I ultimately got out of coaching and really wanted to live here in Boulder. And Boulder's kind of the mecca for endurance sports, whether people are running, cycling, triathlon. So I think by virtue of where I live, I have access an opportunity to have a positive influence on that genre of athlete. And that genre of athlete also traditionally hadn't looked to strength specifically to gain prowess. So I've been able to make some inroads in building trust with runners and cyclists and triathletes to help them perform better and extend their career over time. And when I first sat down with Timothy O'Donnell, and he was probably my first real flagship, popular, recognizable athlete, we didn't really talk about him winning Kona, although that's where we're going and that's the goal. We really talked about him having a very long, prosperous, lucrative, high-performing career over the next decade to decade and a half. So that's really what we're looking at, hoping for.
Wow. So let's just talk about the process of what it's like to actually work with you and benefit from your knowledge. How do you first meet with somebody and then walk them through the process of working out?
You know, the first thing we're really going to look at is what does success mean to that athlete? Because, you know, I'm privileged and lucky to be around the pros, but the bulk of my work is done with normal people. And so if you sat down with somebody like me, I'm going to sit down and say, you know, I want to do the best I can in my age group. I want to see how I compare globally with people who are my age. And I think that's mostly who we talk about, the age groupers. And some people want to just finish the race. But the first thing is, you know, and I love working with people who just want to finish the race. But my true passion is somebody who wants to move up in the rankings. They don't want to just finish. They want to keep getting better because that's what makes it fun. And that's what makes it as a coach. You know, you want to see people progress. And so first and foremost, I want to know what the vision is. How will we know when we're successful? What are the measurables? So once we can set that outcome of getting better, then we start looking at where we're starting. And so we talk about assessment and we look at the condition of that body as it stands before me. And sometimes I have the privilege and opportunity to see people in person, but not always. And I have an app that has been an exquisite delivery system for people all over the world to be able to do the work that we do. And like you, I wear 4 or 5 different hats. And I try as much as I can to make time if somebody has a specific question and I need to customize a program, I'll do it. So we need to look at a starting point. Sometimes that starting point comes with me just doing a postural assessment because we have the beautiful gift of FaceTime or Skype or whatever works best for somebody. I can actually see somebody. I want to see how they stand. I want to see the position of their feet and hands when they stand. I want to watch them move a little bit. And then I wanted them to tell me a little historically about what sport they played. And Terry, I never even asked you, what sport did you play before triathlon?
Long distance runner. So I got into half marathons in 2006.
Even before, like what about when you were in high school?
High school. So that was in high school. Did cross country and then track. And I was mainly in ROTC, JROTC at the time. Yep. Did drill team. So tossing rifles, drill and ceremony. Then rifle team, just holding your breath, shooting, and did some other fun stuff with ROTC, rappelling and whatnot, some obstacle courses and all that fun stuff.
Obstacle courses and ROTC and stuff like that, we can kind of visualize what that teenage version of Terry was doing. And it's the same thing that I want to know in most of my athletes, because I think in this next generation, we are going to talk to some kids that, I've been a triathlete since I was 7, but in our age category, that didn't happen because triathlon's a relatively new sport and people typically come to it from a different sport. So Tim and Rinny are the easiest ones for me to talk about because they're so different. Rinny was a basketball player. So picture this multi-planar athlete who can, is cutting and diving and running around, and she runs backwards and she runs sideways and forward and all of them. So I think that has played into Rinny being a very healthy athlete because of her changings of directions, and her body layout when she was a kid kind of evolved into an athlete that could handle a lot of different directions. And then if you look at her husband, although he was definitely at the Naval Academy and probably did a lot of those obstacle courses that you described, his primary sport was swimming. So it took us almost 7 months for Tim O'Donnell to get really comfortable on one foot, for him to stand strong on one foot. And I find that generally with swimmers people who have grown up swimming, that a lot of the single leg stuff takes us a little bit more time to develop than athletes that played football or soccer. Crowe is another one, Craig Alexander. When Craig's in Boulder in the summer, I get to spend some time with Craig, and he was a soccer player. So we're really talking similar to Miranda Carfrae, in that they have this movement ability that has lent them to have this beautiful body that can handle repetitive motion, I think, better than some people who haven't experienced a lot of changes of direction. So knowing where someone is coming from is also one of the first things I'm going to look at.
Okay. So you're almost kind of like me, like whenever I first meet with an athlete and we really start talking about, all right, if I'm going to accept them as an athlete and then start talking with them as a new athlete, one of the things that I'm going to start doing, if they say, hey, I'm going to do Ironman Boulder in June, yes, June, I think. Oh, yeah. All right. It might be July. Is it July or June? One of the two. So whenever that
it's actually June.
Yeah. Oh, great. I don't have all the dates on my calendar yet. But so if they were going to do that, one of the things I'm going to ask is, hey, you're staying on race day. You're about to get in the swim. Instead of being nervous, you're staying there on the edge of the water going, this is my race. I'm here to crush it. I'm ready. I'm ready to do everything I can to do the very best I can. And then I take that frame of mind and read back into that. What workouts did you do in training? So it sounds like you want to know what success looks like before you even start, just like I do as a coach.
Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah, it's important because that's, the athlete starts to share their vision. Then all of a sudden there's a little responsibility on them. Like, you've shared your vision with me. Now we're in this together. We're a team. So I'm going to start creating that same vision, and we're going to celebrate when we're done. Get there.
Wow. So you do the initial assessment, see how their body moves, and then what do you do next?
Once we establish the outcome, the desired outcome, and then we know where we're starting from, we're going to look at their experience with strength. Have you been in the weight room before? Most of my stuff is relatively simple. It's a matter of, for me, I'm also an endurance athlete. I understand what it feels like to come in after a 4 or 5 hour ride. I'm not an Ironman, but man, do I have a ton of respect for people that do that distance, because the workload associated with it is grueling. And there's a level of neural demand that comes from that can kind of leave us a little bit tired a little bit of the time. And we don't want to be reading a lot of long explanations of how to do these exercises. I'm also, there's a lot of credentials, and I've spent a lot of time studying a lot of functional exercise and that kind of stuff. But I really do believe in the basics, the science and the proven modalities to get stronger. So there's not many certifying agencies in strength and conditioning that is as pure as the National Strength and Conditioning Association. They don't talk a lot about functional training, because to them, that's a little bit of fluff. And I don't think it's fluff, but I also know that it's pretty high neural demand to do some stuff that we see in CrossFit, or we see even at Orange Theory, and it's not exactly what Ironman athletes need to do. So when you're coming in off a 4-hour bike ride and you need to go to the gym, a simple approach and a systematic approach is pretty important. So most of my beginnings are relatively low neural demand. They're not hard exercises. They're natural body movements, squatting patterns, lunging patterns, pulling and pushing. It's just a matter of slow, small, incremental demands that are placed on the body and on the mind of how you can get better and better and better. So we're going to start at the beginning. And some people complain early, well, this isn't very hard. This isn't very physically challenging, and I'm not sore. And why aren't I lifting heavier weights? And I just get back to them and say, your changes, your positive changes are going to come from your run speed and from your wattage on your bike should slowly come up. You know, it isn't our goal that you can lift a lot of weight. Our goal is that you can ride your bike really fast and that you can continue to put on in more yards in the pool with comfort and strength, and you're not getting any shoulder problems. And then all of a sudden your run speeds start coming up. You start to recover better. Like, so we have to kind of shift that you're not going to have all of these gains in the weight room and you're going to have all these gains in your sport as well. It's very difficult to gain both. So everything that starts very simple, just do it. So if people complain that everything's too easy, I say, get back to me in 3 weeks and let's talk again. And so they'll typically come back to me 3 and 4 weeks, and then the light bulbs are starting to go on and they go, okay, I understand. I feel better. I'm progressing on the bike. My coach is blown away. He's been able to progress me a lot. I mean, the beauty of the data that you guys as coaches can get from your athletes, you can see there's breakthrough after breakthrough. And that's what we want. So step one is really about giving you access to what you already have, because we're starting to break down some of this muscle tightness that comes in the front side of the hip. We're starting to break down some of the tightness that comes in the shoulders, because not only are you swimming, you're spending a lot of time down in your drops. Hopefully we want to get you more comfortable in your drops, because you can throw down 250 or for a guy, 350 watts. You're going to be faster if you're comfortable in aero. You know, you look at a bunch of age groupers, they're not always comfortable in aero, and they're making their sport way harder than it needs to be. If I can get your upper back stronger and your posture stronger and you're more relaxed in your shoulders because you're stronger, you're going to be able to lay on your bars a lot longer. And what's fast? Aero is fast. You don't need to push all those watts if you can stay aero.
Right. You shouldn't just be aero for the first 80 miles of an Ironman. Like,
yeah, hopefully all of it. Right?
Yes, hopefully all of it.
Yeah.
So
trust me, I've watched the end of a lot of Ironmans, and I'm just like, God, and nutrition always comes in first thing. You know, why can't I? I'm a horrible runner. Well, you're not really a horrible runner. Maybe you're a horrible eater. You know, so we can, I like that strength can solve a lot of problems, but strength can't overdo a bad nutrition plan, you know? So being able to stay aero sometimes isn't about strength. It's about, you know, and your audience knows exactly what I'm saying.
Oh yeah. So as far as after the first 3 or 4 weeks, you start progressing things. What does it look like then? Is it just maintenance, or is it progressing with different neural demands? What is this like? Yes.
The answer is yes. I mean, different athletes, people sometimes will finish one of my plans and they'll be, what should I do now? Because I went through 9 weeks, or I went through 12 weeks of your plan. So then we're going to start to peel back the onion with that athlete a little bit, because once you've been through 2 months or almost 3 months of the work, we're going to start to be a little bit more specific to who that athlete is and what they need and what works for them. So a lot of times, if you come in, typically I would like to see people do the gym session after a hard run session or after a hard bike session. So if anybody listening today wants to make one positive change to where they do gym, let's take their gym session off of their off day. Stop doing gym on a day that you're supposed to be recovering. And that's typically one of the first changes I make on someone's schedule.
Okay, so how did you discover this, and what made you want to incorporate this after a hard session? Because at some point along these 30 years, something shifted, and you found, let's just do it after a hard bike or a hard run. How did this come about?
I think if you look at periodized training, You want the hard days to be hard, and you want the easy days to be easy. I think the biggest gains in performance that we're going to see in the next 3 to 5 years, because God knows we've seen a lot in the last 3 to 5 years, it isn't going to be about training harder. It's going to be about training smarter. So if you come off of a long bike ride, let's say you have a moderate swim and a long bike ride on Sunday. That's a typical Sunday for me. It means Monday, I need to recover. I don't need to go to the gym.
Right.
I can do an easy 30 minutes. I can do a recovery swim on a Monday just to move a little bit. Then I come into Tuesday, and my typical Tuesday would be to do intervals on the treadmill, and then gym, and then probably a swim in the afternoon. And it's a good hard swim, but it's short. So then Wednesday comes around, and I've usually got a 2 to 4 hour bike ride, but it's usually zone 2. So what my coach is doing is we're having very hard days, and I'm over 40. I'm actually over 50. So it's even more important for me to have these days where I recover, because your training week is either going to be anabolic or catabolic. And sometimes it can be a combination of two, because you're a coach, Terry, you know that this week is going to be hard for my athlete. I'm going to beat the crap out of them. They should be tired, dead dog tired. Well, that would be a very catabolic week. It's not. And then the next week you're going to say, now they're going to start feeling good at the end of next week. So there's this regrowth that happens in recovery. So if we have a high neural demand and a high muscular demand in the gym, but not a lot of duration, most of my sessions, I recommend between 30 and 45 minutes in the gym. 45 is a top end time. Even if you don't finish the proposed workout for the day, you're done at 45 minutes.
Really?
Yes.
Why?
Because your body can only do so much. So that's why the app has been really refreshing. There's not a lot of reading. It's highly visual. It's fun to look at because Paula Finley's on there, and Rennie's on there, and Tio's on there. And, so you're always like, oh, look, I'm working out with Flora Duffy. Everybody's on the app. So it's kind of fun to play along with it. But if you start to get into 1 hour and an hour and 15 in the gym, your work is just, the quality is starting to go down. If you're doing good swim, bike, run training, you can really only handle 30 to 45 minutes of good gym stuff.
Wow. So, I've worked at a gym, obviously. So is that why even an hour of personal training sometimes wouldn't even last an hour?
Right. Yeah. It's just not smart. I just think it just becomes too much. It's just time. And, time is our most valuable asset. And that's one of those things that if you can give someone a little bit of extra time in their day, they usually think you're pretty cool. They're usually pretty happy. So it is, when I first met, I won't name them because I don't want to put anything on their former coaches, but I have a couple of pros that I train that when I first met them, they were doing 90 minutes of gym 3 times a week.
Wow.
And they were exhausted, and they were dragging themselves around the gym from exercise to exercise, and they were not happy. They were just like, I have to get this done. I have to finish everything. And I'm like, well, you sound pretty dull, flat, not energized. Are you sure you should even be under load right now? So I think we've learned a lot about when somebody's talking to you, they're either energized and there's light in their eyes and they're ready to go, or they're just going through the motions. And, I've been an athlete in the past. There were days when I was in the gym where, I'm done at 30 minutes. I did a good solid 30 minutes. Let me go home and eat. Let me go home, put my feet up, get my Normatex and recover. But, I think that 30 to 45 minutes, usually the athletes are happy. And if they're happy and they're progressing and they're not injured, then I think we're doing really good work.
Wow. So to kind of get back on track here, we have doing the hard sessions on hard days and keeping the days off for that reason. How did you come into this mode of thinking?
Well, I've always thought that. So this was something that I brought from the NSCA of understanding periodized training and understanding recovery days and understanding that you can't keep breaking your body down every single day. And also, I like to make friends with coaches. So like people like you, if I take away from your athlete's ability to perform the session that you've got in front of them, you lay out a workout on Thursday, which is typically my hard bike day. Let's say you're my coach and I show up and you're like, okay, Erin, I want you to do 10 by 3 minutes at 210 watts, which for me is just over my threshold. And I show up and I'm like, damn, coach, I can't even hit 200 watts, or I got the first 3 reps, but I couldn't get all of them. Then you're going to say, well, what did you do yesterday? I'm like, well, I did a little gym, did a little ECFit program on Wednesday. Well, I went into that bike session not recovered and not ready to perform that session. So coaches tend to align really well with my programs and my way of thinking, because their athletes actually hit their numbers. And they're like, what did you do yesterday? I did nothing. I did some mobility, and I've got some everyday mobility program, because you can move. You just don't want to add a lot of external load. You want your muscles to keep rebuilding. And if you did some mobility on Wednesday, came into your 10 by 3 minutes and just freaking nailed it, coaches are pretty happy about that. I love making coaches look good. So after that bike session, which was let's break those muscles down. Let's make you stronger. Let's give you a very hard session. You get off that bike after 10 by 3 minutes and you go do some Bulgarian split squats, and you go do some single arm presses, and you go do some core. And then Friday you recover. All of a sudden we're just tagging on after the session. So we're not taking away from the session. I don't think you should do gym first, until that, sometimes we do gym first, but not very often. Julie Dibbins is one of the coaches that I work for her team. And there are times in the off season that she wants them to go gym first and then swim. And she's doing that on purpose so that the athletes are just tired when they get in the pool, and it just gives them a different experience, which they don't really like. but she's a pretty smart coach. So I have no question that she's doing right by her people. Wow. For sure.
So with this program that you have on your app, what does this look like? How can people access that?
Well, I try to always have a demo program on the app. So the app is free. You can download it. It's ECFit Boulder. My colors are black and red, and so it's pretty clear. ECFit Boulder in the App Store. The app's free. So download the app, get signed in, and then right now I have a swim program that I did with Tower 26. So there's some strength stuff. I think there's 2 workouts. So if you look at, there's 3 layers that I like to look at. There's exercises, which we can all go on Instagram and pull off some really sexy exercises, but that's fun to see if you can do it. And then there's workouts, and you can go do a HIIT workout or, anything like that. But what I'm really an advocate of is a program. And this is something that evolves and grows. And like we alluded to, we're going to look to just evolve the program and make it so that there's little additions, whether it's neurological challenge, whether it's a balance challenge, whether it's adding a little bit of weight, so a little bit of a muscular challenge. There's all these different ways we can add load without actually adding a bunch of plates to the end of the bar. So programs evolve. I try to get different demos onto the app. There's a bunch of videos on the app, so you can kind of get used to me and know who I am. So there's a bunch of videos that I've got up there right now, and people are kind of loving those. So I'll keep adding videos and virtual workouts and stuff like that.
So talk a little bit more about the recovery process. You mentioned everyday mobility. Is there a certain recovery program you prescribe to? I know I've seen your website, and you plenty of posts with people that I know that go to your club that also do the foam rolling, the boots. What does all this look like, and what do you prescribe to as far as recovery? What does that look like?
Well, we love all the passive modalities. So the Normatex or the Pulse boots or whatever you're doing, any kind of, if you have an opportunity to get to a boot, get in a boot. but not everybody has access to that. So a little bit of foam rolling is always good. And when we talk about foam rolling, it's funny because I think 3 or 4 years ago, we were all like, well, if it hurts, it must be working. And most of us don't think that anymore. We think if it hurts, it's not good. So anything when it's painful, you want to back off that. And my suggestion with that, so if you're IT band, let's say, you're going to foam roll your IT band. Well, I probably could put 9 people out of 10 foam rolling their IT band, and it's going to hurt. So I suggest roll a little bit forward, get onto those quads. So we call it anterior lateral quad. Foam roll the quad a little bit more, foam roll the hamstring a little bit more, foam roll the hip a little bit more. So just surround the IT band. And all of a sudden the IT band will probably relax a little bit. We'll chill out a little bit. You know, most of us are living dehydrated. So a lot of times we're trying more than anything to rehydrate tissue. So we talk about tissue care. Recovery is mostly about just giving the muscles the opportunity to repair themselves. So I'm not a nutrition expert. I think you probably have 2 or 3 of those that you know. But you got to make sure you get enough protein for muscle repair. You got to make sure you get enough carbohydrate to refuel for tomorrow. You got to have enough fat to make sure that there is the facilitation within the cell back and forth. Recovery is mostly about having really healthy, I call it making your bubble nice and big, your bubble of movement. And you can see an athlete that needs to recover if their bubble is a little smaller than usual. So usually they can get their arm way back here and it might just be a little bit short. So we just want to work our way gently through that tissue and pump that tissue full of hopefully water and all the different fluids that flow through the body and make us healthy.
No, you're not
primarily want to make sure you're
trying to
rehydrating.
You're not putting like shots in people and putting water directly in the muscle. That's not what you're talking about.
Wouldn't that be nice? I'm sure they'd figure out how to test for that. No, no, but that would not be nice. No, you got to move to be able to hydrate. Muscle that's just sitting in one place, like when you're sitting in an airplane and you think you're hydrating your muscle and you're drinking a ton of water, going to a race, sitting on a plane, just know that water, if you're not moving around, that water is going into your gut and straight on out. You need to move muscle and tissue for it to become hydrated.
So is that why you would like want to stand up and move around a little bit, or do like I want to say isometric. Is it isometric where you just like hold the muscle and then like
it's just holding? We don't want to hold. We want to move. Yeah, movement is medicine. Movement is healing. Good, healthy movement without a lot of tension or a lot of fatigue building kind of stuff. We're just really looking for good movement. We do a lot of multi-planar lunging, step to the side, step to the front, step to the back, reach your hands way over your head. You know, it's amazing how tight the lats can get. You know, that's one of the biggest offenders of hip problems is going to be how tight your lats can get. And
how do your lats even get with your hips? I don't understand.
Oh, come on. You work in a gym. If you look in the back of your body, their biggest, densest, biggest bundle of fascia is protecting your lumbar spine, your thoracolumbar fascia down there. That all interacts with your lats. And that also pulls up from the bottom onto your pelvis. So the lats attach to the pelvis via that fascia, that huge fascia in your low back. So yeah, lats are a big one for me to help with hips and great motion down below the waist.
Wow. So that's the mobility and getting the athlete moving. What about the stability and making them strong and getting good balance and all that? Yeah,
you know, the biggest thing with the single leg exercises, and I would call those the sexy exercises because everybody likes to do the single leg stuff. The biggest thing for me is we need to make sure that your bubble is big and that you're moving well before we want single leg exercises. And this is probably I didn't make this up. I wish I had, but stability without mobility is tightness. So what percentage of triathletes do you think come in tight?
Yes.
Yes, exactly. A high percentage. So usually that first 10 to 15 minutes that I spend with a triathlete or a runner or a cyclist is spent kind of unraveling their hips, their ankles, and their thoracic spine. Those are my 3 key areas of mobility. And I did not make that up. Very smart physical therapist, somebody who I admire greatly, Gray Cook, uses that as his some very strong teaching points. So ankles, hips, and thoracic spine, if those are not moving well, we're going to take the time we need to make sure that they are.
Wow. So stability without mobility is what again?
Tightness. And once you're tight, you're not going to feel good running. You're definitely not going to feel good cycling. We want a nice mobile fluid. There's a wonderful book written by a guy named Kelly Starrett called the Supple Leopard. And we really want that suppleness in the body, because then when you're out running, I mean, I think we've all hopefully experienced a little bit of that nirvana of easy when we're running and everything's just moving well and it feels really lubed up and everything's just, wow, I'm just floating. And, when you're not floating, you just desire to float again. And I think when you're not floating, you're just tight. That tissue is fighting you. The brain makes most of those decisions. The central governor, Tim Noakes, is another very, very smart dude in South Africa who talks about the brain making all the decisions on how fast we run, how fluid we run, how balanced we run. If there's any kind of danger, the brain is going to shut down tissue. It's going to shut down motion within joints. So I think that just having that suppleness, having that hydration, having that movement is the first step. And then we start to say, okay, now that you're moving well, let's see if you can control that. Let's see if you can handle a single leg stance. So that's where we kind of begin the journey into stability, because I would say a very high percentage of people that come to me, and they don't think they're very good runners, or they know that their best chance to improve is by running, getting stronger on the run. Well, let's just kind of peel back that onion a little bit. Running is a single leg stance after single leg stance after single leg stance. The stiffer and more controlled and more stable each one of those landings is the gateway. The brain will decide how hard you will put that foot into the ground. Fast running is about putting your foot into the ground very hard. But if your knee collapses in, because that's what gravity and ground want to do, your knee wants to dive in. That's the pattern of a human. If you can't control that knee, your brain's going to say, oh, you can't run that fast because there's danger further up the chain if we let you do that. So what we're really looking to do is create this safety within the mobility within the ankle, then the knee can be stable and strong. Wow. So we'll get you standing on one foot. To give you a good example, one that any triathlon fan who values the Olympic distance, Flora Duffy, when she was chasing Gwen Jorgensen all the time. And Flora is one of the best cyclists in the world, let alone triathlon, but she's definitely one of the best triathlete cyclists there are. And Flora needed to be able to get off the bike and run faster. And she had at the time a very, very good coach in Neil Henderson. Neil knew how to get her to run faster through programming a running program that would get her to get faster. But her body couldn't necessarily physically handle the kind of training speeds that Neil was asking her to do in order to achieve the outcome. So we had to get Flora very, very strong on one foot, so that she was able to put her foot into the ground harder and harder and harder, so that she could get that reflex coming back off the ground, so that she could do it again and again and again. Well, she's one of the strongest people I know, and we built her into that, and she was able to beat Gwen Jorgensen. Not necessarily on the day in Rio, but you never know in Tokyo. So we're looking to Tokyo 2020 with Flora. But yeah, it's all about being able to be strong and stable on one leg in order to run faster and stronger.
Wow. So with stability, without mobility, there's tightness. So how would you start loosening someone up? And I know you mentioned ankles, knees, and hips. No, ankle, hips, and thoracic back. Is that right?
Thoracic spine.
Okay.
Thoracic spine.
How would you start loosening someone up if they have tight ankles, hips, or thoracic spine? And how would you even know about the thoracic spine?
Yeah, typically. Well, you can see if somebody's stuck, if their upper back is stuck. This is a podcast, so it's very difficult to show you a stuck upper back. But I think if you just picture great posture versus bad posture, and that kyphotic curve that curve that somebody can have when their hip forward chin is jutted forward just a little bit and their upper back's a little rounded. They look like they might have been working on the computer all day, or they were driving their kids around all day. That spine, and you get out of the car and you want to open your chest up and you squeeze your shoulder blades together. That's starting to mobilize a stuck thoracic spine. And I think most of us have felt what that feels like when we get off our TT bike. I put my hand on my helmet, start grabbing my helmet, my shoulder blades start squeezing back together, retract and depress those scapular, your shoulder blades. When you can start moving your shoulders forward and back, and really squeeze them back, then you start to feel. If you didn't do that, you would just start, gravity and ground would just start pulling you more and more forward. So if everyone puts their hands behind their head right now, that is one really cool tool to start mobilizing your thoracic spine and stopping it from rolling forward into that crappy posture. The hips, because we sit so much, we can pretty much anticipate or predict that you're going to get into this anterior tilt of the pelvis. Your hips are going to drop forward. And then when your hips drop forward, the backside goes up, and everybody thinks they have tight hamstrings. Well, you do kind of have tight hamstrings, but they absolutely don't need to be stretched because they're already overstretched. So if I were to just stand here and Terry, you can see me, but as I drop the front side of my pelvis down, the back has to go up. Well, the hamstrings all attach back there. So as soon as your hips go down in the front, that ischial tuberosity on the back, or not the ischial tuberosity. It is the ischial tuberosity. It's where all the hamstrings attach on the pelvis. That's going to put them on a stretch. So we're all kind of walking around with this lordotic curve in our low back, and that's not a bad thing. It just can create tightness. So we want to add motion to the hips. We want the pelvis to be able to move freely, so that the low back can be stable and doesn't get too much more of that lordotic curve and get stuck in that position. And then down at the ankles, I use the wobble board a lot to be able to drop down into the big toe and let that talus, which is the bone between the calcaneus and the tibia. So you can't really see the talus, but if you opened up your ankle, cut it right in half down the middle, you'd see there's another bone in there that's supposed to have a nice little glide to it on every step. So we do a lot of lower leg. If the knee can move forward over the big toe, we know that your ankle's moving pretty well, but it's all in the app. There's lots of strategies. There's really a lot of ways. Everything that is in the first 5 to 10 things you're going to do in every gym session is mobility in the ankles, mobility in the hips, and the mobility in the thoracic spine. And it's not crazy stuff. You're going to say, "Oh, I do that." Well, you didn't even know you were mobilizing your T-spine.
Wow.
But you have been doing it. Yeah.
I was talking with Natasha Vander Merwe and she actually swears by your app, and she coaches and she has all of her athletes download your app.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
That's perfect. Well, like I said, my goal is to make coaches look good. So that's, if you have healthy athletes and they're happy, mood tells you a lot too, because I'm not really sure where we are time wise, but let's not ignore the fact that once we can get an athlete under heavy load, keeping in mind that we started this podcast talking about the difference between Tim and Rennie. Miranda Carfrae being a former basketball player and a beautiful, very natural athlete. She's also 5'3", so it's a little easier for her. She's a little smaller. I was able to get Rennie under some good load within 3 or 4 months, and Rennie doesn't even really like lifting weights. With Tim O'Donnell, it took almost 7 months to get Tim under good load. And I'm very lucky now because I've been training him for 5 years, and there's a hormonal upside to lifting heavy weights. And it's not one that I think people should jump right into. I think there's a journey to get there, but we want to go there. We want you to be traditionally lifting heavy weights, and every body type will be attracted to a different kind of exercise, and to be open. There's not one great exercise. There might be one great exercise for me or one great exercise for you, and there's going to be one that you really like. So we want to find out what exercise do you like the best? And that's the one we're going to try and get you loaded under.
Wow.
So some people like the hex bar deadlift. Some people like a straight bar deadlift. Some people like heavy pull downs, but heavy lifting and putting that kind of tension into your muscle. So happy. And you told me about, what was that episode with the sex therapist person? Was that 219
with Shauna.
Man. You know, with Shauna, you know, a healthy hormonal profile is a unique thing amongst Ironman. I want to pay attention to that. We want people to be happy and you know, less depressed. It's you know, let's not be shy. There are some issues with long, slow training that we need to combat and talk about.
Wow. So I know a lot of athletes talk about, I don't want to lift heavy weights in the gym. Mm-hmm. Is there a middle ground of, hey, we can only do heavy weights in the off season? I don't want to lift too close to a race. I mean, what about this? There's issues there.
Yeah, I think there's a spectrum with that, Terry. I really do. I think that answer is going to be different for every athlete. The week of Kona this year, Rinny went under heavy load. She feels good. She feels connected. That's a great way to activate muscle, is by putting it under load and demanding that it turn on and do some work. We don't do a lot of reps, 3 to 4 reps the race week on a Tuesday for a Saturday race. And that was just for Rinny. For T.O., he's 2 weeks out. We lift heavy weights, but we just decrease the volume significantly when their training volume is high, when their swim, bike, run volume is high. We'll still do gym, we'll still do heavy weights, but we'll do a lot less volume.
Really?
Nothing that would damage any muscle. You know, we try to walk that line. And I think the more consistent you are, the better, because you start to get to know yourself better and better. And I've alluded a little bit to people calling me and talking to me after they've been through 1 or 2 cycles of a program. And they go, what do I do next? And we start to try to identify some of their key sessions, key swim, bike, run sessions, when they've just really nailed it. And I think as athletes, we all know when we nail it. We had a killer session. We made our coach happy. We did what we were supposed to do. Well, what happened in the week leading up to that session? So I really try to get people to pay attention to that. You know, it's like, well, I didn't do any gym leading up to that session, and that's possible. Then I would say that person should just make sure they're moving well the race week. They really shouldn't go under load. But the exact opposite could happen with somebody else. They could say, I nailed the session, or I had the race of my life, or I PR'd like you don't even know. Well, what did you do on Wednesday? What did you do on Tuesday? It all matters. That's why recording our sessions and workouts really matters.
Wow.
So, yeah. So I think the answer can be a lot of different answers. There isn't one good answer there.
It's basically finding what works for that athlete.
Yeah. And then just paying attention, like what happened. If you had a really good session, look at what happened 5 days before.
Okay. So we all know Rinny obviously had little Izzy.
Yeah.
How was her progress after the little one got here? And did you do anything special with her after she came back the first time? What was this like? Because from a strength training perspective and a coach, you're obviously hand in hand with Siri, making sure that you're doing what's right for Rinny in the end game.
Yep. Yeah, Siri's happy if Rinny's achieving and doing well in her sessions. If Siri and I don't have to talk, then I know I'm doing a good job. So when all through 2018, and Rinny also is just an experienced person, and an experienced athlete, and she knows when she feels good, and she knows when she doesn't feel good. So I actually, we did very similar things in 2018 than we had done in 17 when she was pregnant. We didn't change much, which is why I'm quite excited about 19. So when you're breastfeeding and when you've had a child, your body you won't have your body back for another year. And I think most mothers or fathers who have been with their partners, recognize that there's some magic that can happen in that first year, because Rinny had a very good year last year. I mean, she worked hard for those finishes, but she won races. She podiumed in everything she did. Fifth in Kona. She worked hard for that 3-hour marathon in Kona. She'll come back next year. We did not do any plyometrics, any elastic energy work in 2018 because her body wasn't elastic in 2018. And she was breastfeeding. She was loving being a mom, but she just didn't have that snap in her run that she typically has. Her ground contact time was way higher than it usually is.
Really?
So, oh yeah. Yeah, that's just, it's elastin, and it's just that movement. I mean, picture what does it take for your pelvis to pretty much come apart and let a baby come out? I mean, that doesn't just affect your pelvis. That's your knees, that's your ankles, that's your shoulders, that's your spine. She was very mobile, very malleable, and we've had to put more stability back into Rinny here in the last few months. Her and Tim just headed off to Australia for their annual training camp in Australia. So when she's there, she's going to be working on a lot of single leg stuff, she also gained 40 pounds last year, or the year before when she was pregnant. And so her legs are strong. She doesn't need a lot of external load to make her stronger. She just needs some snap in her step and some more stability work for sure. So we've got a strength coach that we work with and movement specialist, Ian O'Dwyer, that they'll work with in Noosa when they get there. And Ian is even way smarter than me, and he'll do some good work with them. He's been working with them every winter when they go there. And so his level of care will be very appreciated by Rinny as she kind of comes back here in 19, ready to contend for that title again. So
wow. So what about people that are pregnant right now that are looking to get in the gym, or even after delivery? What can people take away that are about to go through this process?
Well, it's funny because when Rinny and I were training through her pregnancy, we actually have Rinny on the app. We have a prenatal training app that we created. Yep. So if you get on the website ECFit Strength, which is where the programs live, you'll see there's Rinny, and it's kind of funny for all of us looking back on how big she was when she was pregnant, and she just looked great, and she had such a healthy pregnancy. But we did a lot of filming, and we've got a little program that a lot of really great triathletes, top age groupers, some of the former pros have used the program as well. But it's a very accessible program. There's no fancy schmancy stuff in there. It's just what we did in the gym through her pregnancy. So we're pretty proud of that. Yeah, we're super stoked to share that with people.
Cool. So to transition a little bit here back to more of kind of like an FAQ, what mistakes do you see most often in the gym that age group athletes or even athletes in general make?
I think the biggest mistake I see is they do too much.
Really?
Yeah. I think usually, I just think that 30 to 45 minutes of the right stuff that's really specific to unraveling the tightness that comes from swim, bike, run is probably, that's the most important stuff to be doing. There's just only so many hours in a day. So I think really dialing in a program versus a workout, and knowing that it's okay to have a short gym session. Even a lot of people do swim and then gym because it's usually in the same building, especially age groupers. There's typically, whether it's a rec center or wherever the pool is, sometimes there's a gym associated with it. And so even if you only have 15 minutes, that you can make a really good impact in the gym. I just think people just tend to do too much. They're searching to lift a lot of weight, and that weight needs to get heavier and heavier and heavier to make it a successful gym program. And it really doesn't. If I haven't said it enough already, I'll just make sure your gains should come on the bike, in the pool, or on the track. Like, you want to see those are where you should see your gains. You shouldn't care that if you bench pressed the 30s dumbbells, that next time you do 32.5, or the next time you do 35s. Over the course of years of doing this stuff, you're going to get stronger. And if I could tell somebody who's 40 that they're going to be stronger at 45, they're usually going to sign up for that program.
In a sense, it's almost like you're saying put your type A personality in a jar and leave it at the door and look at the long course versus the short course of things.
Yeah. Look at performance as the outcome. You know, that you don't win in the gym. You don't improve in your age group in the gym. Quite frankly, you can screw it up faster than anything in the gym. You know, anybody hurts themselves under load or in the gym, that's stupid too. You know, that's one of those things that, you know, while I was trying to do a muscle up and I tore out my shoulder. Well, it's not that a muscle up is bad, but if you're a swimmer or if you're a triathlete, then why would you risk it? You know, we're just constantly managing risk and reward. And the reward is in the pool, not in the gym. The reward is on the bike. You know, there's nothing better than going out and just nailing those sessions. I feel it because I do it. I'm qualified for Nice this year. That's going to be the 170.3 I do this year. I gave myself one chance to qualify and get my coin. I came second in my age group in Santa Cruz last year, and I just freaking nailed the day. I have a great coach, and he prepared me well, and that's winning to me. You know, I get the vibe of crossing the finish line, not falling over myself, and just doing exactly what I was supposed to do. I ran the time I was supposed to run. I actually had a 10-minute PR on the bike. I've never ridden that fast. So I think when you have a good coach, then the strength program is there to support the swim, bike, run program.
Wow. So
strength coaches, leave your ego at the door and
yes.
let the sport coach be the star. It's okay.
So what defines a healthy athlete then?
You know, to me, a healthy athlete has a bright personality. They have brightness in their eyes. I mean, you and I can, as we're doing this podcast, I can see you, Terry, and you know, you look like a happy guy. You've got a little sparkle in your eyes, and I'm sure if we were walking, you'd have a spring in your step. And to me, a healthy athlete has a good relationship. Hopefully, if they have a partner, they're having a good, healthy, well-balanced relationship. They're sleeping well at night. They're progressing in their sport. They're doing well at work. You know, and they're not, you know, I think we'll all have, as endurance athletes, we will all have a couple days each month where we have a little bit of tingle of depression because we do dance with our hormones a lot with our training, but that shouldn't happen that often. You know, that's something worth investigating further if that's how you're living, and you don't have to live like that. So, you know, we want to be happy. We want to be springy. We want to be inspiring to others. That's typically why we choose to do this sport. We don't have to, we choose to. So
wow.
To me, that's a healthy athlete.
Wow. So to kind of wrap up, how can people follow you and reach out to you?
Well, I really have been enjoying the social media, the Instagram. I'm starting to understand the difference between Facebook, Instagram, and evidently Pinterest is somewhat important. But the ECFit Boulder is kind of my tag. It's my name on the Instagram. It's the Facebook page. I use Instagram more than anything. But my website is ECFit Strength. I don't want to be confused with a swim, bike, run coach. I'm going to stay in my lane and do what I do well and do what I'm passionate about. So ECFit Strength is where all the programs live. We're going to expand that offering to our audience. We've got some people that live all over the world that want to do some of the workouts together. So we're excited to expand what we're doing. But right now we've got programs on the website, and download the app though first, because you can get a vibe for how that feels.
Wow. So do you have an email that people can write you, or do you prefer that?
You know, I'm actually, the easiest way to get a hold of me to start with is just message me on Instagram.
Really? So you pay attention to that?
I sure do. When
so
that little paper airplane shows some numbers, I get a little shot of happy. So I'm like, oh, people want to talk to me. So let's skip the email. I mean, you can email me if you want. My email is on the website. But the easiest way and quickest way to get a hold of me, the Instagram has been good stuff so far.
Wow.
Yep.
So to kind of wrap up here, usually I ask a different question, but being that you're in the realm, I'll just ask, what's your definition of a perfect workout?
Uh, I think I used to really dread the run off the bike. And I think it's because I used to be coached by someone who didn't use data. And so a lot of times I would get, and I'm going to go swim, bike, run because I like the gym, but my favorite workout is usually a brick. I like the bike to run situation. And I really like it when I stick to my plan, and I do the work that I'm supposed to do. Then when I get off the bike, I feel pretty good. So I like a good hard 3-hour bike session and then with a 45-minute run off. And then I might come to the gym within the next hour or so and do some curl to press, a little bit of hex bar deadlift. I'm always good for a straight bar deadlift, double leg. I've got my favorite exercises.
So you're a deadlift girl.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I think deadlift's probably the best thing ever. If your body's moving well, it is the original core exercise. Like I'm not a plank person at all. That's one thing. I think your athletes, if you're a strength coach, you stop making them do so many stupid planks. So there's very few planks in my programs.
Really? So you're not a plank guy?
No, I'm not a plank guy.
Man.
I mean, I see the value. My athletes can do planks. We just don't do a lot of them.
So are you a fan of the burpee then?
No, hate it.
Okay. So make sure
What's up with a burpee? You're a military guy, right?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
For you, a burpee is really relevant because you know where they invented a burpee? How to get out of the line of fire. You're going to dive down on the ground as fast as you can because someone's shooting a gun at you. And then you're going to get up and run, and then you're going to dive down again. So the burpee was invented for the armed forces, and it's very, very meaningful. I use a Turkish get up a little bit. I think even in transition, nobody's going to get up like a burpee out of transition. So we're going to teach people to get up off their butt pretty fast because I used to try and stand and put my shoes on in transition, and I started wearing socks and stuff. It's faster for me to sit down. So me having a strategy to get up off my butt in transition, I can save 30 seconds if I do that well. So we do think about those things. But no, I don't like burpees. Man. No burpees in my program, not a one.
Awesome. Well, Erin, this has been awesome, and I look forward to following you in the future. It's been fun. I look forward to it.
Thanks a lot, Ter. Talk to you soon.
You're welcome. Have a good day, okay?
Cheers.
Thanks for tuning in today. I hope you were able to learn something from today's episode. If you enjoyed the show, please take a minute to leave a review on iTunes or share it with a friend. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. If you'd like to see pictures from this athlete's race, learn more about who I am, what I'm doing, or be on the show yourself to share your story, check out my website at CoachTerryWilson.com. Until next time, continue the pursuit.